matter because I'm human. Black lives matter because I'm real.
I'm a person.
Black lives matter because this culture is ours.
Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Philadelphia-based award-winning jazz pianist Lucas Carlos O'Reilly. We caught up with him about his 2021 CD, I Too Sing America, a black man's diary that conveys the pain, the hurt, and the heartache that one goes through as a black man or woman living in America today. It's a music in the now that reminds us all that black lives really do matter. Luke has always had a passion for music that covers jazz, soul, R&B, gospel, Latin, classical, and any other genre, and he was drawn to good music at a very early age. When he was 4 years old, he and his mother started taking group piano lessons together. From there, he became the musician he is now, and he talks about it. Enjoy the story.
Good, man. Everything's good. Thanks for taking a minute out again. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Okay.
So, to start off, with your new album, the imagery, the message, everything, I think, I'm always a very big fan of what I've seen over the last year or so with everything that's kind of gone crazy in this country. And I think It's very important for artists to have a document, especially African-American artists that feel passionately about this. And I just want to know from you first and foremost, how refreshing, how good does it feel to actually not only release art, but a statement?
Oh, wow. I mean, so I'm going to go back to my last record, which was released, I believe, in 2013. I can't quite remember, but I think it was 2013. I enjoyed that process, but I really kind of felt after that, making that record, I felt I need to make a record that kind of goes a little further for me, something that represents more than just some melodies, some souling, and maybe some songs that people recognize, with different arrangements and whatnot, which is something that I enjoy doing. But I really wanted to, with my next project, whatever it was, to have it have a little more meaning in it. So I was kind of led through different things that happened in my life, and of course everything that was happening in the world, especially here in America, led to this basically it started as a Black Lives Matter movement, a suite of music basically, I mean the release of the record, although during COVID it still felt like a great release of energy. I mean, the energy's still there, of course. I mean, I'm still passionate about all the topics that are broached on the album, but it does feel just really, I feel very much a part of something, more so than just like the jazz community or the community here in Philadelphia or New York, where I play fairly often. But I feel like I'm part of a movement that is much bigger and more meaningful. And I don't want to say more meaningful, because music is obviously extremely meaningful, but meaningful in a different way. And yeah, I'm just really proud to be a part of it. It's really, I mean, the project there were a couple different stages of it. I mean, at one point I had a residency at the Kimmel Center, which is a large, fairly well-known venue in Philadelphia that houses the Philadelphia Orchestra. And I mean, that's where you would go to see Herbie Hancock when he comes in town, or Bobby McFerrin I've seen there. But I was an artist in residence there for a year, and that's where a lot of this writing started. So the album actually was secondary to creating the music. I didn't write the music just to do the album. I would actually like to do a theatrical piece in conjunction with this project, as it actually started out as a musical piece, but also was accompanied by movement and dance. So that's something that obviously the album negates. So I would love to at some point revisit it and just kind of continue growing the project. So I mean, it is something that's very important to me, and I'm very proud to have that package out, the album, and I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. Actually,
the one thing that I think has been very evident over the last year is this country was already a car hanging off the edge of the cliff. It just needed a pandemic. It needed something to really push. And there's so many similarities, not even in a real sense, but in just like a atmospheric sense to what we've learned about with the 60s and revolutions and things that happen. And I think that when I look back on those eras, which I find rather magnanimous in the march of social justice, art's always been there. You know, musicians were on the forefront, and I think, is that something that you're continuing to, do you think about with this being a part of a larger pool? Because I know some musicians don't want to be political and don't want to get out there, but I think that personally for me, I think that getting pushed out there just pushes people to a place where they won't forget this, and they shouldn't forget this. And just because the news media decides not to cover it anymore doesn't mean that it's resolved.
Right, absolutely. There's a few things there. I mean, my parents were actually both white. I'm adopted. My dad was Irish. My mom's Italian. They listened to a lot of jazz and soul music from the 60s and 70s. My dad loved Nina Simone, who's probably one of the biggest names in as far as jazz artists that were advocates for women's rights, for equality, for racial equality. And they would listen also to Joan Baez and Bob Dylan, who were also advocates for human rights. And there's a lot of anti-war songs, and so I think I get a little bit of that from my parents, although they're kind of reformed hippies. I don't know that that's even a term really, but they're no longer. They're in their 70s. My dad passed 2 years ago, but my mom's in her 70s, so she no longer really leads with that kind of energy, but it definitely was a part of her upbringing, a part of her adulthood. So I think I've seen that in them a little bit. And yes, some of my favorite jazz musicians and artists, especially if you look at Coltrane, he has a lot of amazing works, like a song with Alabama, or if you, Miles Davis, who probably was, while he was playing, was always at the forefront of whatever was going on, as far as his music representing the times. And I really think that's important. And you're right. I think there are a lot of musicians and artists that want to speak on something, but they're a little afraid that they will turn away their audience. I feel that after doing the 2 albums that I did before, which were both independent releases, I just felt confident that, okay, now at this point, I've established myself a little bit. I have some fan base. I have some people who believe in what I'm doing, who enjoy what I'm doing. I felt like it was a good time, and I felt comfortable. I know that there are probably some people who might be turned away from the album, and that's unfortunate. But if somebody's turned away from the album, then that's not somebody who I need to. if the album isn't really meant to be offensive towards any group of people, and not even the police. I have a song on there called Brother Man in Blue, which is about a black police officer who basically beat me up at one point, and kind of started something inside of me as far as the trying to find some way that we can get some equality and justice for black and brown people who have different occurrences with the police that wind up in their being hurt or being harmed or being killed. The album isn't meant to in any way say, hey, we hate police, we hate this group, we hate this. It's not that type of thing. So if anybody's turned away from the album, then that's too bad. But it's not. I've gotten to a point. I'm 38. I realize now you can't please everybody, and if you try to please everybody, then you're going to just drive yourself crazy. So I think that as people take a listen to the album, they will hear where I'm coming from. I'm actually not. It doesn't even have a direct correlation with the Black Lives Matter movement necessarily. I share a lot of the same ideologies, and there's some terms and phrases that you have heard from that movement that I utilize, like a phrase like "justice delayed is justice denied." But that's a phrase that I believe that dates back to I think the first time that was used was maybe the Birmingham letters, the letter from Birmingham from Martin Luther King Jr. in the 60s. So, that being said, again, I'm not too worried about it turning people away. I really actually hope that more so it turns people into a direction of wow, this music is powerful and there's a message here. Maybe I should be more involved or just at least have more of a better idea of what is going on in this country, especially for, say it's a 60-year-old white man who's listening to the album, who lives in an area where police brutality is not as rampant. You know, it's important to know what's going on in your country, even if it's not happening outside your front door, you know.
So how did the seeds of jazz get in you? How did you get to a point where you're a professional jazz musician now?
I actually started off with my parents' record collection. My dad was always really into soul music. I mean, one of his favorite artists was Ray Charles. So I had, from an early age, I appropriated his Ray Charles records, LPs and CDs. I know LPs are not as common now, but I think they're making a little comeback. But Ray Charles, and then my aunt, my mother's sister, was a huge Lou Rawls fan. So these are people that walk different lines. Of course, a lot of people know the Lou Rawls that is the "You'll Never Find," which is one of his biggest hits. But I mean, he was a blues and jazz artist. And same with Ray Charles. I mean, he started really trying to copycat Nat King Cole. I mean, that's really what his audience wanted, and that's what he was trying to do. I mean, he was playing a lot of jazz standards. He's swinging on piano and singing the heck out of some more standard type of music as far as jazz, you know, from the jazz realm. So that was kind of instilled in me through osmosis from an early age. And then when I got into piano, so my mother actually played piano. She went to Catholic school when she was younger, and in Catholic school at that time, everybody learned to play piano. So she can play a little bit of piano. She's actually been returning back to it in the recent years, which is wonderful. But we started taking parent-child piano lessons when I was about, I think it was maybe 3.5, 4, something like that. I mean, I don't remember, but my mother tells me that I did well, that I excelled from an early age, that I showed just interest in music, and especially in rhythm. She tells me a story pretty often that when I was about that age, she was holding me and I was tapping to some music, but I was tapping to the beat in one hand, and in the other hand was tapping a polyrhythm, which she was like amazed at. So I think that it was somehow just instilled in me at an early age, and through piano lessons, I went on to private lessons that went from classical to jazz. I had a teacher that named David White, who I don't believe even plays anymore due to some hand issues. But he said to me one day, he said, "Hey, have you ever heard of Oscar Peterson?" I said, "No." I was probably about 14 or so. I said, "I've never heard of him." He said, "Well, listen to this album," and he gave me this album, Night Train. And I listened to it, and it was almost like, you know, the day that people find Jesus and give themselves to the Lord. I mean, I was never, ever the same afterwards. And I started working on some jazz etudes that are kind of meant to be classical and jazz combined. They were out of a Oscar Peterson book. And then I really started heavily listening to a lot of Cannonball Adderley, Miles Davis, Herbie Hancock. And that was really like in high school, I went from kind of listening to a lot of different things to just listening to jazz. I was probably about 4 years of just listening to jazz music. And then I went on to Temple University, their jazz improv program, and graduated from there. And I've been in Philly ever since. So that's kind of where the piano and the jazz started.
What's the first live jazz show you ever saw that blew you away?
Wow, that is a great question. Sonny Rollins, probably. Sonny Rollins. I think the reason why it blew me away so much was I was younger, and I don't remember even where it was. It was probably in Boston. It's most likely with my dad. And that show, part of what blew me away, I was a big Sonny Rollins fan. And he must have been in his late 60s or something, probably in his 60s. So to see an older man doing this still and loving it the way that he did, I don't think that he's playing anymore. I think that he's slowed down, but he was playing before the pandemic. But I mean, he still plays the instrument at this age with such a love and respect for the music, for the musicians, for his ancestors, and it's very powerful, just a concert and just experience to see him. Again, somebody who I also looked up to. I've been listening to him a lot, and to go to that concert was really something.
What do you like the best about waking up every day knowing you're a professional musician?
Great question, man. I don't think I've ever been asked that. Just the opportunity. There's always different opportunities. Every time, I mean, I had a friend tell me once, as musicians, we wake up every day unemployed, which is very real and very realistic. But the beautiful thing about that is we kind of have a different job every time we wake up. We have a different job, or there's a possibility of a different job. So I do a lot of projects. I mean, I have my own music. I play with other artists that are peers. They're my age and doing kind of similar thing that I'm doing. I play. I toured with Seal, who's a completely different artist than, I mean, he does some jazz stuff actually, and then play with hip hop artists, play with R&B artists, played with Curtis Fuller before he passed. So it's like, and Dave Valentine, who's a Latin jazz legend. So it's just, there's so many different opportunities. So every time I wake up able-bodied, able-minded, I'm very thankful for that day, for that opportunity, for whatever opportunities I have that day or in the coming days to make music, express myself, use the gifts that God has given me, and also just to connect with people, either on the bandstand, being musicians, or connect with audiences. I always am excited to play for a new audience. I'm always excited to play with new musicians or musicians that I haven't played with for a while. And likewise, I'm just as excited to play with musicians that I've been playing with for 20 years because there's a relationship there. And it's just, it's all, I guess, exciting is a kind of a childlike word, but I mean, it's really exciting being a musician, just being able to have these different opportunities presented to you, basically at the time you wake up.
So let's say they have a Back to the Future Jazz edition. You can hop in the DeLorean and punch in the digits. Who are you going to go see? And who do you want to talk to when they get off stage?
Ooh. I would have to say I would love to see Cannonball Adderley. Cannonball Adderley, Matt Adderley, Joe Zawinul, that group probably. Although Miles Davis, the Miles Davis Quintet, what Miles Davis with John Coltrane, Cannonball Adderley, that might be it as well. The person I'd like to talk to, and it's still, I've talked to him briefly once, but it was not very good on my part. Herbie Hancock is one of the living legends for me. I met him when I was 17. I was at a festival in New Orleans, and I was with a friend of mine. We got in the elevator and we stopped at the floor, and the way they set it up, it's an IJE. So they had the schools. I was in high school. They had the schools staying in the same hotel as all the artists, and there were different performances just in the lobby and in different areas throughout the day. Amazing performances. I mean, you'd walk into a lobby and see Joshua Redman performing, But I got in his elevator, and on steps a gentleman in his probably in his, again, late 60s or 70s, and I think I said, "Hey, you're Herbie Hancock," which is one of the dumbest. It's like the dumbest thing you can say to somebody. I just remember him kind of smiling and saying, "Yep." And I didn't have anything else. I mean, I was a 17-year-old kid who's seeing one of my heroes, and I didn't have anything smart or intellectual to say, nothing. So I would love to have an adult conversation with Herbie Hancock, not one where I'm just standing and gawking at him and looking at a fan. But
that's awesome. As the world wakes up and we get back to live music and things start kind of starting up, what do you hope everyone, both musician and the audience, realizes about the power of live music as we get back to it?
Well, I hope that we can all just, musicians and audience members alike, just get a new appreciation. I think we have that. I mean, I've been feeling it. I know that some of the audiences that I've played for have expressed it. Just an appreciation for that live element. We were deprived for a year. Some people longer. Some people are still not going out to live concerts. I played a concert yesterday, and I had a friend, a woman who's come out to many concerts, and she came up to me and she said, "This is the first concert that I've been to in a year and a half." It's really wonderful to hear, that level of appreciation for that experience. And I really just hope that we that appreciation takes music and live performances and jazz performances to another level where, a lot of people, there's a lot of stories about jazz dying and being dead and whatnot, and where's the audience? There's no more audience, there's no more jazz clubs, and I just hope that appreciation can carry us to another level, where we do have more music. We do have music not just on a weekends. We can find live performances during the week. We can find live performances that are welcoming of young people. I mean, I remember being younger and trying to sneak into different jazz clubs and whatnot, which is fun. I mean, that's exciting. But I also love anytime that there's a performance that young people are welcome, and they don't have to hide from it, so they can actually be a part of it, and they can have it as part of their life from a very early age, which is so important. So I hope that appreciation just takes us to this next level, whatever that level is.
So everyone has an idea or perception of who you are, who they think you are, your family, your friends, your fans, but you're living your life. Who do you think you are?
Well, that's a deep question.
Yeah.
Who do I think I am? I think I'm a child of God. I think I am a person who's put here. I think one of my biggest purposes in life is music, and is creating, and is also education. I do some of my educational work, and it's actually been growing. And it's funny because I used to fight it a little bit, just because I wanted to be performing, I wanted to be touring, and I still tour and I still perform, but I found ways to incorporate some educational work with it, and I really get a lot out of working with young people, and not just in a musical sense as far as bringing music or new music to their ears and bringing them excitement for that music, but also just connecting with young people in creative ways, trying to help them express themselves. So I think that the educational work and the music that I write and arrange and the performances, I'm definitely a performer. I love performing. I look forward to each and every concert that I play, and I approach them all kind of individually. So I think that live performance aspect, coupled with the educational work and, of course, recordings. Curtis Fuller once told me the greatest legacy that you can leave behind will be in the educational work you do with young people and in the recordings that you do. So you have to do to record as much as possible. So I think that's I know I answered in a very musical sense, but that's who I feel like I am. Yeah, that's who I feel like I am. I'm glad maybe they'll change over the years. At some point, I could see myself owning a venue. So maybe that educational or performance aspect will turn more into an owner, a club owner, and still providing situations for young people to play, and for performances, and for music lovers to be able to come out and enjoy music in a really comfortable but fun setting.
Beautiful. Hey, Luke, thanks for taking a minute out to Neon Jazz. I really appreciate it.
Man, I appreciate you very much. Thanks for taking a minute, and let's stay connected. I hope to talk to you again soon.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest cats in Massachusetts, Philadelphia, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Luke for his time, energy, and cool. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit Neon Jazz at youtube.com and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.